Ask Senator Hall if he would turn to page 55 on line 5510, section 7. And I would like to know if any of the language in section 7 had been heard before his committee this session in local government, sir.
Senator Hall, did you catch that?
Thank you, Mr. President. No, I didn't. What was the question?
Senator Isaacson, please repeat the question.
Just want to know if Senator Hall on page 55, section 7, on express preemption, if any of the language in section 7 had been heard before his committee of local government this session.
Senator Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Isaacson, no. I don't believe I've seen this in local government.
Senator Isaacson.
Thank you. Well, we both know, most of us know at least, that Senator Pratt and the Jobs Committee did not have this legislation or this language heard. I'm wondering if Senator Cohen would yield to a question.
Senator Isaacson, who is the question?
Senator Cohen.
Senator Cohen, will you yield? Senator Cohen will yield. Senator Isaacson.
Thank you. Now, Senator Cohen, I've heard a rumor that you've been here just a couple more years than me, and I'm just wondering if you could maybe elucidate for me how important is it, or how serious is someone if they want to get a language passed? What does the committee process play in that role?
Senator Cohen.
Mr. President and Senator Isaacson, obviously, it's always been my sense in the Senate, particularly in the Senate, that we have tried to hear legislation of significant importance. Certainly we have amendments of a more minor nature, rider language, whatever, that is presented to the particular committee of jurisdiction without hearing. But where you have some issue of some significance, it's been my experience over the years that the legislation, certainly the proposal, has been heard in a substantive way in the particular committee where there's been an opportunity to have testimony on both sides, to have a fuller committee discussion. And obviously, Senator Isaacson, you and I serve on the Jobs Economic Development Committee together, and I know we were disappointed, as were other members of the minority, that we didn't have an opportunity to have a fuller discussion of this issue during the committee process. We certainly had some discussion as the bill was presented, the total omnibus bill was presented. We had some discussion, some limited testimony, but given the import of the issue to many of us, I would have hoped we would have had more discussion.
Senator Isaacson, do you have anything more?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Hall.
Well,
Senator Isaacson.
Excuse me?
So I didn't know if you had anything else.
Yes.
Senator Hall also wants to speak.
Yep,
Senator
thank you.
Isaacson.
So what I find to be interesting about this section, and you know, I've only been doing this a few years, but the fact that it hasn't been heard leads me to a couple of conclusions. Now, I do think that this issue is somewhat known by all of us to some degree. However, the specific language should probably be discussed in finer detail for the committee to dissect and determine what they think is important.
Mr. President.
Senator Hall, for what
I wonder if Senator Isaacson would allow me to clarify. I did not recognize the
Senator
bill.
Hall, Senator Isaacson has the floor right now.
Okay.
Senator Isaacson.
Mr. President, I would love to give Senator Hall the opportunity to answer my question more fully.
Senator Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Isaacson, we did hear, it was my mistake, we did hear the Koran bill, which is this section, Senate File 2321. I believe it was March 11th.
Mr. President.
Senator Isaacson.
Mr. President, thank you. And to be clear, the Koran bill, if Senator Hall would yield again, reflects the exact language we see here in the bill right here from page 55 to 56.13. Is that correct? Or I'm sorry, 56.11.
Senator Hall will yield.
Thank you, Mr.
Hall.
President. Senator Isaacson, I believe there was one change to date. Yeah, the effective date was.
Senator Isaacson.
Mr. President, I'm sure that Senator Hall was trying to get it right. My understanding from one of my colleagues is that the committee didn't meet that date, but I'm imagining that it did meet at some point, and I'll take his word for that if that's the case. What I want to point out to you is that this bill apparently didn't get passed out of committee or didn't get passed on to jobs where you would find it to be normally used or scrutinized, as that's a big part of what we do in the Jobs Committee. I don't think my earlier point is diminished in the fact that clearly this language wasn't taken very seriously. And why I think that's important is that I think you have to wonder the question, when we include language like this in a bill, what's its purpose? When we include language in a bill that's probably not going to pass, or that hasn't been, let me rephrase that hasn't been vetted, that in the current political climate probably isn't going to be passed, I begin to wonder what its purpose is, and I can see it only serving as the purpose of being bait for trade in the conference committee. Now, I can't begin to understand the motives or the wisdom of the opposing party. I wish them the best in the process of this conference committee, but I have to say that I'm a little concerned about why we would offer such a sweeping piece of legislation. If I were to take this legislation seriously as one that I had to be concerned about, I would make some arguments about local control and how important it is to make sure that we allow people who are locally elected and the closest to their constituents make the best decisions on what's best for their cities. And it's just astonishing to me that we think a one-size-fits-all law like this is the way to go. I'm not comfortable with that. I wish this wasn't in there, and for that reason, Mr. President, I'm going to offer the A15 amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I think I can fix this problem for them, and I think make their bill a little bit more transparent and save them some effort and some heartache in conference committee, as I am confident this won't survive conference committee and certainly wouldn't survive the governor's pen. I think that this is a punitive action and really reflects a much larger game being played between two parties outside of the legislature that are very interested in leveraging their interests. And so I would encourage them to accept this as a friendly amendment, but in the case that it is not, I request a roll call. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to just acknowledge that I feel like Senator Osmek and I are developing a special friendship. What's been really nice about that is, and I want to be clear that he is the one that brought up Animal Farm, and I want to thank him for that because I think Animal Farm is a wonderful analogy. You know, what's interesting is a simple Google search. Well, let me take a step back. I got kind of admonished a second ago for questioning intentions, and I was very clear about just saying, I'm trying to understand the purpose of the bill. I'm trying to understand the purpose of language. I never said anybody specific had a purpose. I'm just trying to guess what it is because it doesn't make a lot of sense. And so where I got that from was I happened to be perusing a website frequented by my friends across the aisle, American Legislative Exchange Commission, and found the language on their website that goes out nationally to a lot of folks. And you know what? I've only looked up two things on the ALEC website, and both times that language appeared in this bill. And so let's use the Animal Farm metaphor for a second, shall we? And I want to thank Senator Osmek for bringing that up. If you remember, the book Animal Farm was about a pig who really wanted to bring the family together and the farm together in what looked to be a really common cause, and to make their lives better and to drive that evil farmer out, which we might call the local cities, out of control of their farm. And so he had some ideas of how he might do that, and he implemented these ideas saying, you know what, let's work together. And I'll be in charge, and I'll run this, and you guys get the work done. And if you remember, there were some pretty important characters. One of them was the workhorse. And the workhorse was the people of Minnesota who work every single day to get the job done to make our state a great place. But there was a special role, and that special role was the sheep. Now, the sheep were the people that every time the boar said something, the sheep would then bat out all the time, trying to make a point about how important what the pig had to say was, and it would drown everybody out. So if I were to draw the same analogy, using kind of the same mechanism that Senator Osmek did, I would have to argue that ALEC in this situation is the boar, and I would never begin to guess or pretend who I think the sheep are, but I do believe that their stuff is being pointed out in a way that isn't healthy for Minnesota. I trust my mayors to do their job. I trust my city council people to do their job. I trust my citizens to elect them and to have them reflect their values. And right now, this bill, this amendment helps us do that. The bill in its current form doesn't, and I would love to have a green vote. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Senator Benson, for which reason do you rise?
Under Mason Section 124, I believe that Senator Isaacson was engaging in personalities by implying that the amendment was based on a relationship with an outside body, ALEC in particular.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Isaacson.
I wasn't implying. I said that's what the case was, because the language is on the website and the language is in the bill. And I'm saying there isn't a hard correlation between that. So I'm sorry if there was any confusion on that.
Mr. President,
Senator Benson.
I'm on the point of order.
Senator Benson.
I'm asking for a ruling. Is Senator Isaacson's comment out of order? Under Mason Section 124, paragraph 1, in a debate, the member must confine remarks to the question before the House and avoiding personalities.
Senator Isaacson, please confine your comments to the resolution.
Thank you, sir. I hope you'll vote for my amendment. Appreciate your time today. Thanks.